Slavery, deforestation, price fixing, exploitation of the uneducated. These are the terms that come to mind when you stuff your mouth with the fourth Kit Kat of the day while sipping on your Nespresso. Nestle, however, has been involved in so many controversies in the past that even the most hardcore industrialists will find it hard to defend their actions. Nestle is a Swiss-based multinational that produces food and beverages. Some of the products they produce are baby food, bottled water, coffee, cereal, pet food, and so on. Overall, Nestle owns over 2,000 brands in over 150 countries. Some of which you've heard for sure, like Nesquik, Lion, and the aforementioned Kit Kat. And some of which you've probably not, like Black Magic, which is not some guy's stripper name whom you just met on a drinking bench with friends in the back of a shady bar while high on various and copious amounts of drugs that strokes through your hair with his gentle fingers while maintaining strong yet gentle eye contact, but a chocolate bar. Nestle has 447 factories, operates in 189 countries, employs around 339,000 people, and had in excess of 93 billion US dollars of revenue in 2018. Of course, a company can't make an omelette of excessive greed without breaking a few eggs, and why break a few when you can break many, like in Uncle Bob's regretful hungover breakfast after drinking and snorting one too many with a stripper called Black Magic. Nestle cracked one of those eggs in the 90s when they aggressively pushed their breastfeeding formula in less economically developed countries, specifically targeting the poor. They made it seem that their infant formula was almost as good as mother's milk, which is highly unethical at best. The first problem was access to sanitized water. A big percentage of their target demographic, especially in Africa, did not and still don't have access to clean water. This made it necessary for them to boil the water, but due to the high illiteracy rate, many of the parents were not aware of this. So they mixed the baby formula with contaminated water, which posed a great risk to the health of the children. Even if mothers understood the need to boil the water, they might not have the facilities to do so. UNICEF estimates that a formula-fed child living in disease-ridden and unhygienic conditions is between 6 and 25 times more likely to die of diarrhea and 4 times more likely to die of pneumonia than a breastfed child. Another problem was that mothers tended to use less formula than needed to make their jar last longer, resulting in many infants receiving inadequate amounts. But even if the water was boiled and enough formula was used, it is lacking in the essential nutrients and antibodies mother milk provides. Nestle knew this and it continued to promote their formula, but it even gets worse. The International Baby Food Action Network claims that Nestle distributed free samples of their formula to hospitals and maternity wards. After leaving the hospital, the formula was no longer free, but by this time it had already interfered with the production of mother milk, because the supplementation caused the mother to stop producing milk. This basically forced the family to continue to buy the formula or let their child starve. It's not clear how many lives were lost because of this aggressive marketing campaign, and of course Nestle does not claim responsibility for any of these. They knew in advance the amount of human tragedy this would cause, but instead opted for financial gain. Legend on the street says Nestle took note on how local crack dealers attract and keep their clientele, and applied this tragedy to impoverished communities on a global scale. And just like crack, I love chocolate. Little did I know about the dark underbelly of cacao production. In 2005, the International Labor Rights Funds filed a lawsuit against, among others, Nestle. According to the suit, 3 million children were trafficked to the Ivory Coast, forced into slavery, and were frequently given beatings. In 2010, the US District Court for the Central District of California determined corporations cannot be held liable for violations of international law and dismissed the suit. A controversial decision which has since been appealed. But even if Nestle wasn't legally liable for these abuses, they are at least morally. That wasn't the only case of this kind. A report by an independent auditor, the Fair Labor Association, says it found multiple serious violations of the company's own supplier code. It was reported that Nestle hadn't carried out checks against child labor and abuse. Additionally, many injuries caused by machetes, which are used to harvest cacao pods, have been reported. The FLA reported that Nestle knew about the conditions their cacao was being produced in, but did little to improve the situation. In 2019, Nestle announced that they couldn't guarantee that their chocolate products were free from child slave labor, as they could trace only 49% of their purchases back to the farm level. The Washington Post noted that the commitment taken in 2001 to eradicate such practices within 4 years had not been kept, neither at the due deadline of 2005 nor within the revised deadlines of 2008 and 2010, and that the result was not likely to be achieved for 2020 either. Just like New Year's resolutions that you keep postponing, till you wake up as a 40-year-old, slightly overweight, balding man with nothing to look forward to all day and to sit down on the couch and watch your favorite TV show about competitive glassblowing. A little known fact about glassblowing is that the first glass vessels were produced by Egyptians in the 15th century BC. Another little known fact is that Nestle is the largest producer of bottled water in the world. They're so keen on their water business, in fact, that they don't believe water is a universal right. I quote Chairman Peter Brabeck: "There are two different opinions on the matter. The one opinion, which I think is extreme, is represented by the NGOs, who bang on about declaring water as a public right. That means that as a human being, you should have a right to water. That is an extreme solution. In the mind of every sensible human, having access to water is not an extreme solution. People have called it a basic need for centuries now." Even Brabeck backed down after the media attack that followed. He said that he believes that water is a human right and advocates for universal access to safe drinking water, but his actions, as well as Nestle's actions, show that that's just greenwashing. A coalition of environmental groups filed a complaint against Nestle to the Advertising Standards of Canada after Nestle took out full-page advertisements in October 2008 with messages claiming most water bottles avoid landfill sites and are recycled, Nestle Pure Life is a healthy, eco-friendly choice, and bottled water is the most environmentally responsible consumer product in the world. In their 2008 corporate citizenship report, however, Nestle themselves stated that many of their bottles end up in the solid waste stream and that most of their bottles are not recycled. Nestle has shown time and time again that they have few ethics and little interest in real social responsibility. From promoting their formula to uneducated African mothers to using literal child labor, they have often gone the extra mile to make an extra profit, even when the extra mile meant hurting people directly or indirectly.